All right, we're back for episode 4. Episode 4. Oh my god.
Not allowed me to come down.
Oh my god. I think we're in question number 5 officially. But as far as you're concerned, it's question number 4.
I think we've become better with time management,
mainly
because we've been doing this the whole day.
This entire podcasting, if nothing else, has been like an excellent trial run. I hope it's gonna come out as nice as I think it will, but like.
You know what, Aileen? Let me comfort you.
Oh, please do, because like the anxiety is gonna run away with my brain.
When greatness is here, it'll always be okay.
Moving on. Here's the shot for question number 5.
Add that shot. No, don't add that shot.
Exactly, I'm not going to add it. So, I wanted to ask you this question because the FIFA Women's World Cup is ongoing.
You bastard! You bastard! She's a bastard. You know, she told me in the break, she's like, but then I want to ask you a football question. I was like, I'm not failing this. Then she brings a football women one. It's okay, no problem.
So because of like the FIFA's Women's World Cup, I think even FIFA recently told us that like 1.3 billion or like had been made through ticket revenues because of this World Cup.
This World Cup is breaking. This is the first time I have had interest in the World Cup. It's gone.
The Women's World Cup.
It's gone now.
Okay.
Because the one thing I think the Women's World Cup has done, the women's game has done better than the men's game, is update the quality of African football faster. So we saw Nigeria, South Africa, and Morocco all reach the round of 16. Nigeria was removed in a penalty shootout to the UK, who look, and I probably will be totally wrong, but they're in the semi-final as we speak, and look like they could win the whole thing.
I know today that we're recording on Tuesday 15th of September, so today Spain and Sweden are supposed to be playing the semis, I think.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch the games.
Okay, so my question to you is this. Also, this question is also related to one of our friends, hi Bridget, who recently got into football, specifically the EPL.
Male football.
The EPL. So, my question to you is this. What percentage of EPL viewers in the UK were women in 2021? The options were 35%, 29%, 33%, and 28%.
Now, depending on whether this is a trick question or not, I will say this. The UK has a very high viewership from both men and women. And women do constitute a big chunk of viewers. So by that, all the numbers you gave me were, I think, a little lower than I thought they would be. But I'm going to go for 35. 3, 30, 29, 27, 23.
There you go.
Bottoms up, my people.
I mean, I did do a third. So
she did. She told me she's done half of this shot.
She's done I'm still working on my first drink. I am a tiny person. I'm a tiny human being.
You know what's so unfair is that she's 100% sober.
I'm not 100% sober.
Like 96%.
I'm like 57%.
It's a lie, AX. It's a lie, but it's okay.
Yeah, we good?
Yeah, bottoms up.
Bottoms up.
3, 2, 1, go. You saw me took that shot, huh?
No, you didn't. I was watching from both. You did not. You know, even the audience did not see you do that shot. If you want to pull that trick, you have to go off camera.
Oh, yeah.
You still have not drunk your shot, respectfully. I can tell. Just do a little. Okay. I was going to say do a little bit, but fine. Okay. So.
If I wake up in the morning with a hangover?
It's not my fault.
So
the actual answer is that 29% of viewers of the EPL are women in the UK. Which why were you surprised that it's lower?
Because I know in the UK a lot of women watch football.
More recently, yeah.
Yeah, so you have grandmas who, you've not heard those stories of like a grandma who's had her season ticket for like 60 years.
So I guess my question to you is like,
the question you should be asking is, how do we get you women of the Kenyan variety
that's actually
into
what I
this
wanted us
sport?
to have this discussion about. But I think the first one we need to talk about is like, why do you think that women don't watch, or why do you think that more women aren't watching the EPL?
I don't know, and it confuses me because Like I had a fight.
Or women's sports. I think
I had-
we need to separate those questions.
Okay, so I had a fight with my sister
Okay.
over this week when we were driving from Shags to Nairobi. I told her that I will only do this if I am in the location we need to be by 2 p.m. sharp, because Arsenal will play. So when she delayed and so we needed to leave our place at 12. We ended up leaving at 12:40.
Ooh, you're not gonna make it.
I drove like the craziest madman in the world. And so she was pissed at me because we made it.
Yes. Oh, you did?
Yes, but also because the game was delayed.
Oh,
This was the Arsenal game. Yes, Arsenal is the only team you need to support, people. Please forget all the rest. So I don't know. I think people don't understand how sports, especially football in this context, have been used as an icebreaker for men for generations. Someone like me, I'm not the best social.
You're not a social butterfly, are you?
No, I struggle with small talk completely. And so football actually gave me a lifeline even in high school. I had made friends because of talking football. We would speak football from when I got to the school, that's around 7:50 a.m., to when I left around 5 p.m. All we would talk about the whole day was football. We would play paper football. We would then go play games football and then talk about sports and predictions the whole day. Unfortunately, we're not as close as we used to, mainly because our relationship
Was
depended on
basically
football.
about football, yes.
But what it does is I think many men need something to support and believe in that also gives them an ability to relate with other men. And football is that vehicle.
So, okay, then it seems like what you're suggesting is that, like, because women have other avenues to connect and build relationships with each other, that we have not been invited to, or we have not been encouraged to explore.
No, we don't encourage
sports as an alternative.
And I should
right?
hire you as my speechwriter when I become president of this republic.
Why?
You translated me so well.
No, because I think, okay, fine. Then I guess my other question is like, then, because if the whole idea of like, the reason why men relate to sports also has to do with the fact that you're seeing people you value and people you want to emulate. These male role models, like doing something that you genuinely care about, which makes it more accessible.
I hated sitting down doing math, but I loved playing football outside.
Right? So why is it that like now that we have the rise of like women's football, women's rugby, women's, I mean, tennis has always been like women's sport kind of anyway, so like it's more accessible to women.
Okay, fine.
Than like something like football. But like, why is it that even with the rise of like women's football, why is it that you don't have women supporting women's football? Like, why do you think that is?
I think that's really a question you can't really ask a football guy to answer. Because it's complex. Number one, like for a guy, you're watching sports because you're watching the best. People who could do it in a way that you could never compete against the best. And there's always a winner and a loser. It's like literally replacing our desire to go to war. Sports is war, isn't it? In some extent. You go to battle and there's a winner and a loser.
Conversation.
And so you're watching the ultimate best. What I've seen from a lot of guys who have tried to watch like the World Cup is this is going to get me cancelled, but I've not really started, so you can't really cancel me.
You can't cancel somebody before they've started. I feel like that's not how it works.
Exactly. Sports, football in particular, like sports, is played at a higher level. I can see your eyes, but I think you agree. You'll never say that you agree, but I think you agree. It's played at a higher level by guys. And what I'd say is it's also played to help like push what guys are good at, while you watch women's sports and you can't play like a guy can play, but you can play like how you play.
So if I may interject briefly.
You're going to bring me facts which are complete nonsense, but I'm going to have to agree with.
So there's a 2021 study.
My roll dies.
Yeah. Okay, but like it's still a study where the person was exploring the difference between men and females football. And they found that like men and women's football actually have a similar play intensity, but it's measured in different ways, right? So women's matches have on average more free kicks, duels, others on the balls, that is accelerations, clearances, ball touches, and passes. But they have fewer fouls in men's matches.
How do you have more free kicks but fewer fouls?
This is what they found. I can send
Just
you the study.
saying.
I can send you the study. As a result of fewer fouls, the women's matches often result in a correct game. And I think that's what it is, because like even you know this is a game. There's a joke in males football, which is there is always like an accident in every match. There's always somebody overacting an injury, and that's just because of the way that that's how you get free kicks. That's how you get that shit. But I think for women's football, because you are encouraged to soldier through because of that whole like femininity thing. Have you not seen those pictures of women like with bleeding shins and ankles just playing on?
It happens with men all the time as well. It does.
I'm sorry, are we not going to talk about what's his face?
You're going to say Neymar.
Yes.
You see?
That's who I was thinking about, yes.
You think women don't have divers in their sport?
I have not seen them, no. Because
you and
I both know that if a woman were to dive, it would be received more negatively than if a man were to dive.
So let's reverse this question. Why don't you watch more women's football?
For me, it's that I don't watch sports in general. Because the women's sports that I'm more interested in are the ones that combine like agility, flexibility, balance control, muscle control.
Isn't that because that's something they're better at men than?
No, it's because that's what I've been exposed to as a quote unquote legitimate female sport.
So what do you like?
So it's things like gymnastics, figure skating,
they're better
dance.
at it. They're better.
It's not that they're better at it at all. Because if you look at male and female gymnastics, they measure completely different things. Like one of my favorite YouTube videos to watch are women doing male gymnastics and men doing
they both suck.
Because you're measuring completely different things.
Like the videos of the women can't even climb the beam.
Not even the beam. The thing where you have to do the round thing.
They can't do it. But then the guys can't do that flippy thing.
Exactly, the pole vault or the bars. Because you're measuring different things. And because with a sport like gymnastics, you start when you're 3. Which means your muscles develop in order to enable you to do these things.
But isn't
so when you meet something new, it's going to be fuck, how do I do this?
But isn't that exactly the point? We're not saying, at least I was saying, I told you for the first time, I even watched half a women's game. I have had more interest in the outcomes of this game for two reasons. I said the first is because Africa was doing pretty well.
And then?
The second is because the USA was not doing pretty well, which for me, in any sport, I'm sorry, you're the villains of the world. Let me not lie. When you lose, the rest of the world is happy.
We celebrate.
Yes, so when they lost, I was also pretty happy. And they were the World Championship. And I think my mind has been messed because I really believe everything is propaganda. But the media team, the communication team has done a really good thing to make us more interested. For example, I have watched maybe 100 times the South African ladies sing.
Yes, that was amazing.
They didn't sing just once, by the way.
I know, but
they sing every time they got to a game. They sang a new song.
Amazing.
And the Hambawena song is a song that's famous. And they did
the dance.
But they also did. And for me, South Africans have, let me tell you, in terms of musical talent, ain't no country better than South Africa. And none. In terms of swag and quality of sound, Nigeria is above. But in terms of just people who can sing, South Africa is unbeatable. So I think what you said is exactly the problem. That gymnastics understands that the human anatomy is different. And so they grade you on different scales.
Yes.
While all the other sports, it's why can't women have come to it, and we're going to get cancelled for this, but have come to it why can't I? Which is true, you should be able to, but why don't we use, as you said,
a different
metric? It's remember the question that guys were asking. I remember one of your friends, your biggest nemesis, his name is Chris M. And we were talking about it, and we were talking about someone suggesting that maybe for the basketball, the hoop should be dropped a foot. So instead of it being 10 feet, let it be 9 feet. So that we see more action, because in basketball, it's about action.
It is.
But the women said, No.
It's because, and I think it's because, like, when you live in a male-dominated world in which the only way you gain legitimacy is to do things like a man would do them.
You can't
Right?
beat them in the
no,
physical.
No, but that's the thing. Like, if that is the only way in which you will be recognized, in which you will be praised, if we have not created other avenues that not only praise you for your individual strengths, but also recognize those strengths as strengths, then you are going to try to reach a barrier or a threshold that was never designed for you.
True. Like you said, I was saying, you can never ban, like, you have every right to attempt to do any sport you want, as whoever you are, as long as the environment permits you. For example, as I was telling you in the break, you can't ask someone who lives in a impoverished background to go swimming.
Yes.
But if you have access to a pool, you can go swimming. But if you ask those questions about how sport is evaluated, like, you just look at it.
So,
Usain Bolt ran the fastest 100 meters in 9.58 seconds.
Wasn't it 6'9"?
9.58. 9.58.
Shit, really?
Yes.
God damn, that's fast.
6'9" is his third best time or fourth best time.
Okay,
He's done 9.58, 9.62, 9.61, and then 9.69.
Okay, damn. For him.
The best, Africa's fastest runner, 100 meters runner, is Ferdinando Manyala. I think he says 9.8, 9.79.
Which is not bad at all.
Well, it's great.
Yeah.
The fastest woman, who was someone they have never been able to get near because it was the 80s. That's all I say. The eyes should have told it all. But the 80s had a lot of enhancing.
Okay, moving
Across-
on. Moving
across
on.
both men and female.
Yes, it did. Yes,
So, like,
it did.
and luckily the men ones have been broken. There's some female ones that are still pending,
Yes,
have been pending 40 years
Yes.
because this person juiced up.
Yes.
So the fastest run I think a woman has done is like 10.4. That wouldn't be enough for like the top 500 men. It's even more than that, if I remember. So, but if we change it up, which is what I guess women are fighting against, to accept your abilities, maybe it'll be more exciting. Like, if you watch football, one of the things that I've struggled with the World Cup is the amount of goalkeeping errors. Just go and watch the World Cup, the Women's World Cup. They've actually, the passing, fantastic. The through balls, fantastic. The shooting, there's this British chick who, when she took her penalty.
Actually, can I just say the 2021 study actually found that passes in women's football are more uniformly distributed among teammates.
You see,
because you don't have that, like, a Ronaldo
superstar
or like superstar whose entire job is to like control the match.
You see,
so everyone plays a role. So
yeah.
It's more of a team. It's more football than actual males football.
Exactly, and like there's a penalty that the British chick took to beat Nigeria, which was considered one of the fastest shots, even against men. Like, it was one of the fastest shots. It was an incredible penalty because the keeper dived the right way, but she would never have gotten there. No keeper would have. As in, those are things that you say, well done. Marta, I don't know if you know Marta. Have you ever heard of Marta? See how little you know about football sports.
I proclaim supremacy in this
I know more than you. I know more than you. Anyways, Marta is like, I don't know how I'd equate her. She's like the Rosa Parks of football, of women football, where when it had no attention, she's the one who brought the attention. She's from Brazil, of course, because that's the home of football. And she's been in, I think, 5 World Cups.
Oh, shit.
And in the last World Cup, you should watch her interview, she was crying because she was saying for the first time, people recognize her and people recognize like her teammates and they tell them that their girls want to be like them.
Exactly.
That shows that football is going the right way.
It's changing.
Don't try and compare it to the men game.
Let it be its own
Let
thing.
it be its own thing. Because you can't say Megan Rapinoe can outrun Theo Walcott.
And that's not the point.
Yeah.
The point should not be to compete with men, but like even for both men and female players to like figure out like what are you doing better that I could learn from you,
Exactly.
and vice versa.
Exactly.
And like I think even to go back to the study, like one of the things that they found that was like really limiting on women's sports was that you don't have a lot of support, like financial backing going into that sport. Which means that even if you wanted to develop technical competence, you can't. Because you don't have the trainers, you don't have the nutritionists, you don't have the therapists, you don't have the exercise people. You're just kind of figuring it out as you go along.
Yeah.
Whereas the male players have all these resources to help them be the best they can possibly be.
But also because they have created. You see, that's the issue. I was listening to some people say that. You see, there's two different things. If you look at football as a sport, then you agree with those things, that there's unequalness. But that's also the same, I would say, for a Kenyan rugby player versus a New Zealand rugby player. A Kenyan rugby player holds the ball for the first time in his hands, like the greatest ever Kenyan rugby player, who, debatable, but we'll say Collins Injera. He held the rugby ball for the first time competitively.
There you go.
He held the rugby ball for the first time competitively in Form 1 or 2.
Yeah.
That's at the age of 14, 15. While a New Zealand rugby player was holding it from the age of 5. So they understand the basics of rugby way before we do. So that's fine. That's equalization. However, when you look at those other things, it's also that you have to realize that there's the equalization and the sport, but there's the business. Which is what guys are saying. That's why guys have had problems with this fight for equality. There's this American journalist, I can't remember his name, who said he doesn't want women to think, to push themselves to earn as more as men. He wants them to earn more than men. Because what you can do with your sport is, if you can bring in the moolah, like I know you've read it, like the revenue sharing. The men revenue sharing, I think the men get like 20%. It's like a really crazy small amount, while the women get like 70, 80% because of the attempt to equalize. But they're saying, if you can find a way to make more money, you will bring investors. Investors will pour money.
I think that then just goes back to this whole idea of like how, because I'm not sure if you remember reading this coverage, but like before the Women's World Cup started, you had a lot of the like FIFA themselves complaining they weren't getting broadcasting rights. People were underpaying for those rights. They weren't getting sponsorship deals. Like nobody was really paying attention to it until it started.
Yeah,
but
that's how it works.
Doesn't it create like this negative cycle in which nobody cares about women's football, so nobody wants to invest in women's football. It means nobody cares about women's football. It means nobody wants to invest in women's football.
It's true.
It's this self-perpetuating cycle that like can't really break.
It's really hard, but you have to find a way to break it. So and that's what they have done.
Right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Which is what they have done. Number one, I give credit to like, I think she's the head of African football, who was saying, trying to get more eyes in the game, trying to get more grassroots thingies, trying to up the quality of the game, brings in new people. Like this World Cup is going to break every single record in the book. The next World Cup will probably do the same. Because number one, one of the issues guys were saying is that it became a bit of a monopoly. It's America, 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 America.
And now we're realizing, no.
I think they've won, it's either 2 or 3 in a row, which is mad.
I don't know what's with American female football, because it used to be the best, and now they're...
Now, what has happened, number one, which is beautiful, but it happens in every sport, when you're at the top for that long, you start to think that the competition is not growing.
You become complacent.
Yeah, and the number two is that the competition has grown. Like, by the way, the quality of the game has leapfrogged. So they have stayed the same, while the guys around them have all woken up.
Yeah.
So I would say, in terms of sports, and sports makes me very passionate, because when we look at how good and how unifying sport is, think about that thing. The World War II,
where they had the Christmas truce.
The Christmas truce of World War One. That was sport.
It was football that brought them together.
The ability of sport. You've heard. I don't know if you've heard of what Didier Drogba did, where he went to part of Cote d'Ivoire that was warring, and he spoke to the rebels, and they had a football game in sort of a rebel-controlled area for the first time, and it brought back a conversation that was needed as to how to reform issues in Cote d'Ivoire. He did that single-handedly. I think it was called the Drogba game. What Kipchoge Keino did in the 1960s, what has led to Kenyans, multiple Kenyans, getting opportunities to run. And imagine, he wasn't the first. It was Naftali Temu, who was number one, but everyone remembers Kip Keino. And what he's done is that now, today, last year, there was a Kipchoge Keino Classic in which people like Ferdinando Manyala, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, these are people maybe some people don't know, actually wanted to come to Kenya to run. Now, that just shows how impactful sport can be.
And I think then what we need to do as a society is, number one, make sports not just accessible to women and girls, but also acceptable to women and girls. That, like,
True. but also make it acceptable to just poverty
to
people.
everyone, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not enough. Like I think again, as we had this conversation between the break, like something like swimming or gymnastics or I don't know, like roller skating or something.
It requires too much investment.
Exactly, but football doesn't, which is why it's one of the most popular sports. Football, rugby, anything with a ball that you can make with plastic and some rubber bands. Very simple. Anyone can play.
Let me tell you, the sports that I believe in the most in terms of require no investment is football and athletics. Athletics, all you need are your legs.
You need to run, yeah.
Football, I remember days, and I'm a pastor's child, that we would go to a space where they didn't have a football. We would make a ball out of paper bags. Now paper bags have been banned. I don't know how you kids make balls.
The polystyrene bags.
Yeah, like the proper paper bag. Oh, so they use the polystyrene bags.
Yeah.
You make a ball. We used to play football or kati with socks.
Yes.
It didn't matter. We used to play a chobo mob with a bottle. A bottle, like this Coke bottle, but this is too big. But a bottle, and play chobo war. As in, football requires so little that it can be a great equalizer. But my advice, my opinion is that for them to advance the game, embrace your strengths. Don't look at
your weaknesses.
Yes, and just say this is what women's football is.
And what
it's about. It's about more technical. That's what they say. It's more technical, more passing, more regimes, more scheming, more strategy.
Let it be that way.
Let it be that, because if it's more physical, it can never compare to the football game, the male game.
And it's not
never.
even because I've often found this about like part of the reason why I don't engage in football in particular is the same reason why I don't engage in politics in Kenya. Is because you need to understand the context in order to understand why what's going on matters.
Ask your friend.
And if you don't, especially for women's football where there's not much reporting, you don't know what's going on, you're just kind of like watching the game. If you don't have the context to understand why what you're watching matters, you're going to get a bit bored.
I'm gonna say that with as much endearment and kindness as I can. But times have changed. Actually, the women's game, every game, is more accessible than you would actually imagine.
Really?
For example, this FIFA World Cup. You think I've been following it through watching the games?
No, I've been following it on Instagram and TikTok. I understand the personality.
As in, the communication has grown. The knowledge base. If you sat down for 10 minutes, actually, I'll give an example. I won't even give an example of our friend who has become like a mega Arsenal fan. And I'm waiting to see if she can come and talk it through with me and see if she can compete.
I feel like she did. There was a time when she came and she did.
I still don't think she can compete with me. You can't compete with me.
I mean, I'm gonna send this to her. I will send this to you. Throw down.
I would beat her handless. I've been doing this 15 years. Please relax. But handless. Anyways, the sport. When it comes to now, I've lost my train of thought totally.
When it comes to football, I was talking about the lack of context and how sometimes
I was saying
inaccessible.
You don't know the brilliance. I was using the other example. So we have another mutual connection who dominated men in fantasy Premier League, and she realized, number one, she didn't need the context. Number two, context is on YouTube. It's everywhere. It is everywhere. If you click, what are the rules of football? Literally, a YouTube video will come and it'll be so interesting you'll be mesmerized. Content creation has brought everything. Any question you ever have to ask, it is there. And it'll create you a video, you'll be like, by the way, okay, like for you, I'm sure one of the issues you'll have is like, what is the point of an offside?
No.
What is the point
of... It's not that. For me, my issue is like, I understand that for me, sports is not about the rules. It's not about the game itself. It's about the community.
It's about the passion.
Not the passion. Because
the community and the passion.
About the passion, right? It's about the community. It's why I love a show like Ted Lasso. Because Ted Lasso is not about the passion of football. It's not about the rules of football. It's about how football itself creates a bond between the men, between the players and the people watching, between the coach and the players. Like, it's a community. And about how the coach works his hardest to reinforce that sense of community. And that's why, like, I will never sit down to watch a match at my home. But if you take me to a physical game, I will. You saw this at rugby. I'll be fully invested.
True.
Fully invested.
The example that our other friend will tell you is that all it requires is one game. For many people that got them into football, especially women and young guys, it was actually this year or last year was the FIFA World Cup final. Did you watch it?
I did not.
that you're the one of the only people in the world who did watch it.
But when was the final again? Like 20...
December 2022.
No, December. Like what? When in December? I feel like it was
Was
like...
it like the 18th?
Yeah. What was I doing on the 18th?
18th. It was a Sunday. There should have been no excuse because everyone else you'd know would have been watching that World Cup final. My shows.
I think I tried, but then I gave
Watched.
up.
Maybe
Like,
you gave up. Maybe
football is not
because
my thing.
you didn't go to the right place.
I don't think it's to me
Had
again. It's
to
the
go out.
community.
Go to a bar.
It's the community. I'm not gonna go into a bar by
Let me
myself
tell
and
you.
drink and like make myself
Just go there, friend. As in, Aileen, the bars across the country. I was not in Nairobi. I was in Mombasa.
Yes, I remember this.
Full.
This.
Until people don't have seats. There were traffic jams, I was told of this, on Kiambu Road. Because of people going to bars to watch the game. So if you went and sat down and watched what people have coined the greatest football game of our generation.
Yeah.
Because it's a final. Think of it as a final.
I do, but
and football is also about storylines.
This is why versus
France.
Shit.
So if you've ever heard us real big football fans, we talk about a guy called Peter Drury.
Mm-hmm.
He's a sports commentator, and his ability to tell a story you would never believe. So now he's talking, and he's talking about the story of the stories come about this character. His name is Lionel Messi, who real football fans consider to be the greatest of all time.
Okay.
But he had never won that one trophy, the World Cup.
Yeah.
And so everyone else was saying he can't be the GOAT
until he wins
the World
I remember
Cup.
that conversation.
And then you have the villain of the story.
Which was?
His name Kylian Mbappe, who's already who in his first World Cup won it. That's 2018.
Yeah.
At the age of 19 or 18. This is his second World Cup, and he's ready to be considered the best player in the world.
I would be pissed if I was
Messi.
Messi.
So now Messi, what I called it Messi and the pack of wolves, because the whole of Argentina, the whole team, rallied around one thing,
which is to get Messi
the World Cup. They didn't care about themselves. It was get Messi the World Cup because to them he was the GOAT.
Again, like it goes back to that sense of community, right? I guess this just goes to like my own personal biases and my own psychology. If you think of the sports that I like, they're very like individual sports, like gymnastics, tennis,
think of it this
skating,
way.
dancing.
The last penalty. I'm trying to draw you, and I know you're not going to get me, but I still have to.
I will sit and drink with footballers.
The last penalty.
I will sit and drink.
The camera pans to Messi, and you can hear him. You can see him. It's later on that we find out whispering, "This could finally be it, Grandma."
Aww.
That's what he's saying. Like he promised his grandma, who never got to see him win,
so sweet.
a World Cup, and he said, "It could finally be it, Grandma." And then the penalty is taken, and instead of running to the penalty taker, he falls on his knees.
And he did it.
And he did, and everyone like circles him. A guy called Aguero, who is a famous player, who had to retire because of a heart condition, runs onto the pitch because his son, Messi is the godfather of his son, runs onto the pitch like everyone is super excited. Argentina fans around the world sobbing, because they haven't won since 1986. That's 40 years. Almost 40 years. And that's the story that is being told in that moment. That's what sport is. Think about the Rugby World Cup. I know you're seeing me so passionate. I feel like removing my glasses even though I can't see
jack. You can't see shit.
Let's put the back up. The 2019 Rugby World Cup. The last time South Africa had won the World Cup was in 2007.
Yes.
Look at how that team was constituted. Think one black player. 10 years later, this is 12 years later.
After Madiba had died, I think.
Madiba has passed away. And you look at that team, and it's a black man standing for the first time, holding that trophy over. And who scores those tries? You should watch the documentary. It's called Chasing the Sun. Who scores the final try? 2 black South Africans. Where it's the second last try, the try that wins it. It's a kick. A black South African passes it to another black South African who, if you listen to the coach say, like in the finals, they made a shirt where you could put pictures of your loved one all around like the gold part of your shirt so that you remember who you're fighting for. He had no one, so all those pictures around him were his own face. Think that. So the coach is crying. The coach is crying is when he's talking about this because like everyone else had their parents,
but
their siblings for him, and he's the one who scores the try.
I again, I think it goes to like the sense of community, right? If that sense of community, history, tradition is absent, then like co-signing it is going to be very difficult. Because if again, like one of my favorite rugby teams, not for like their ability to play or the quality of their team, is the Kiwi team, and it's because of the haka. Watching them do the haka every time.
I feel like shooting you. I feel like shooting you.
No.
I feel like shooting
Why?
you. Because you said the Kiwi team.
Yeah, but they're
Now,
Kiwis.
the Kiwis is the New Zealand football team.
But New Zealand is
They are
not
known
called
as
Kiwis.
they're known as what's the shirt you're wearing? What color is it?
Black. The black team. I'm confused. Is it not the black team? Are we talking about? Is it purple because of my
Now
sports
imagine
bra?
if you were wearing everything black. What would it be called? What would you be wearing?
All black.
So called the All Blacks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's different. I mean, they're not all black, but fine. Okay, fine, but like, fine. Be mad at me for getting the name wrong,
It's
but
okay.
understand the point that I'm trying to make, which is that I've seen them do the haka every time. Just like, it just makes me feel something. Makes me feel not connected to them, but just in awe of their spirit of camaraderie, of their spirit of like togetherness. So like we are like we are one team. We're
war.
moving as one unit.
And we're going to war.
Yeah, we're going to war. And I can't imagine what it must be like to watch that haka and not be psyched out. Because the English team figured out a way.
The English team.
They figured out. I feel like it was the way they stood.
They
Because
had
usually,
they stood in a V.
in a V as opposed to a straight line.
Actually, the greatest, I think it was France, until it was banned. What they did, I don't know if it was France or South Africa, one of those countries. Now, the haka is doing, every time they would change like the part of the haka, the players would take a step forward.
Yeah.
And so at the end, the players were like face to face.
Exactly.
And it was banned because, that could create a really bad fight. But no, there was no fight, but
I think it just goes back to this whole idea of like sports fundamentally is about just another way for human beings to create a sense of community. And if that's not how you personally experience community, then that's okay.
it's fine.
I do think it's a bit of like bullshit to expect women to be the one to advance women's sports.
Yeah, it has to be.
But why does it have to be? Like, I don't expect
you
men
understand.
to be the only ones to advance male sports.
Because you also
It's not
understand
fair
the
to you.
limits of the female body. You understand what they're doing when they're pushing themselves to that level. We don't. It has to. Men can try, but you see, men think very few. It'll take men a long time. Because what has been the image of women in sports for men for the longest time? Let's be honest.
Isn't it like sexy people? Wasn't it like
It's cheerleaders.
The previous guy of FIFA was like, to make the Women's World Cup more attractive
More
to
sexy.
men, you have to like shorter
You
shorts,
see,
AstroTurf.
But that's for the longest time been what men have viewed women in sports: the cheerleaders, the sexier women, the beautiful women. It's very hard for you to take their mind from it. You have to lead the way. You can't depend on us to get interested in your sport, because what we consider what we are watching is, and this is where you have to change our minds, is the best. What we're watching is the best. Men don't watch. I don't watch lower league football. Things like that. I watch only the best. So that's what they see.
Here is where I want to debate you, right? Because like a lot of men say that I'm not going to watch women's sports because it's not as technically competent. It's not as superior, right? But these are the same men that will watch like college level basketball and will watch college level American football and like be willing to engage, or like Little League for baseball and the fucking kids, and be willing to engage with like that lower level of sport because it's something that they have emotionally bonded to.
But also because it feeds the system. I'm not going to watch... now, I don't watch college football because I'm a Kenyan and finished. But if I'm watching college basketball, I'm also thinking this could be the next superstars I'm watching when I'm watching the NBA finals. This could... Same with football, same with Little League. Like, this could be... So you're watching knowing that it's not the best, but these are people who are trying to become the best.
Then why don't we have that same understanding of women that like, I'm watching this knowing that right now they could not be the best for one reason or another. But if I keep on watching that career, if I keep on
Because
participating
they're
in
already
that
at the
journey,
top.
then I will keep on. But they're at the top in spite of their lack of resources, not because of them.
I'm just saying. I think you're diverting. Maybe this is because how people have been against the patriarchy, but I think you're diverting. I think you're diverting the responsibility.
Not
You're
diverting.
not.
I'm
You're
just
putting.
asking,
You're
why should
pulling
it
the
be on me?
responsibility. It should be on you.
But why?
Because okay, what you should think about is, there are men who don't care about sports at all. They're more into cars. They're more into other things. More into making money. Blah 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 blah, and we're fine with that. But there's a cult following of sports that carry this thing. You have to think of it that way. You may not be someone who's into watching sports, but there are women around you who are actually into sports. They have to. It's the first line of sacrifice. The same for what I say. It's why I don't believe so much in the whole idea of immigration. I believe that there has to be a line of sacrifice of people willing to put in the time, willing to sacrifice their lives for the betterment of the good that they're fighting for. And so you sacrifice your time, or find women who like sports to sacrifice that time.
Okay, but like that's not my. I feel like I'm not explaining it right. And I feel like the best way to explain this is in terms of politics, right? This idea that like as a woman, I have to back a female political candidate just because she is a woman, even though it's shit.
We're not forcing you to.
That's the thing. It's that dual dichotomy of like.
But you're telling us to.
No. I'm not telling you to. I'm asking you, why should it be me, right? Like why like. My femininity alone should not be the thing that obliges me to watch something that I am not interested in.
Agreed. That's what I'm saying. You have no problem, but you can't blame me for not watching it either. That's the thing. You have to ask yourself.
I feel like there are also very different reasons for like why that are related, but like also same,
so
but
hard.
different.
I told you, for the first time I watched women football.
It's not bad.
It was not bad.
I've been watching.
However, what did I say?
Bad.
What did I say I struggled with? The amount of goalkeeping errors. Like some of those, and this is the problem because my lens is poor. My lens is already biased, but there are so many goalkeeping errors in those World Cups that would not be errors. There's so many goals that have entered that I'm like, oh, come on. So it's not the strikers.
It's not the strikers.
It's the goalkeepers. That's what's pushing me away from because I'm like, why?
Do you think that okay? Let's say. I mean, this is a very hypothetical question that like, we're not going to get an answer to right now. But let's say probably 50 years from now, we have as much investment going into women's football as we do into male football.
If it's making the money, yeah.
And then we have like an entire generation of sports players who have been trained with the same kind of resources, same kind of knowledge background, same kind of traditions.
Yeah.
Do you think then like perhaps we could get to a place where it's not about male versus women football in terms of like a gender issue, but in terms of like a type of play that you like to enjoy?
I can get that. I think what they need to think of it is the same way we need to think of as African football, where we've basically agreed that because of the lack of attention and the lack of input, the game is not at the level it should be. So we're saying, okay, let's invest. Let's get it growing. Let's grow it. It's the same. So I am with you into that. Yes. Student Aileen.
Thank you so much. What is the reputation of African football? Because I know like Brazilian football is seen to be like not as formally competent, but like a lot more fun to watch.
Now the Brazilian, they're called their nickname is the Samba Boys.
Yes.
And there's a type of football, I can't remember what it's called, but they bring sexiness to football. They're so good.
What?
This is different by what sexiness terms differently. Don't think of sex.
I mean, you said sexiness.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they bring flair.
Okay.
And quality, and they play football in a way no one else can play it. So we look at them like they are football. Brazil is football, both male and female. They are football.
Okay.
So Africa, unfortunately, sort of the furthest we've ever gone was Morocco.
This last year.
This last World Cup, they reached the quarterfinals, and they were exited very closely. But African football has always looked to be disorganized. It's always looked like the players are on strike until the very end. Same with the Women's World Cup. The South African team was on strike until the very end. So was Jamaica.
But the Jamaican one it's a very interesting story because wasn't it like they had to crowdfund their own
flights
and everything, like down to the very basic necessities.
Terrible.
They had to get money from
them
the
with you. Them with you. That's the responsibility. And in fact, I feel the presidents of South Africa and Jamaica, the prime minister or whoever the leader is, should have seen that as an opportunity in terms of propaganda. Say, oh, I will donate and I will fundraise $1 million because honestly, you will be seen as a hero because literally that's what the world is going towards more inclusivity and all those issues. So it's always seen as that the football game in Africa is corrupt, underfunded, undervalued. The players are good for physicality, strength, endurance.
But do we have like a unique style
No,
of play?
and that's the problem I've had. So what do we hire? We hire Europeans to come and show us
how to play like
how
them,
to play like Europeans,
as opposed to how to play like us.
We've never built a football identity as Africans. So my idea was, and this is what I did, there was a time I wanted to be the FKF president.
You can still do that.
Maybe one day, where you want to say, let's reevaluate what our strengths are.
Yes.
As Africans, let's not look badly that our strengths are physicality,
Yes.
strength, endurance, pace, mental fortitude. Build on those and use it as our strengths. Instead of trying to play this super structured European style that really only works for Europeans. So Africans is seen as that. So we're seen as the basket case, the one that always needs support, the one that always needs help, and the one that never reaches where it needs to be. Like Senegal in the last World Cup was probably considered player by player value to be top 5 in terms of player by player quality.
World.
Oh yeah. They were captain, although he got injured, but Sadio Mane, Kalidou Koulibaly, they had Cheick Koyate, Idrissa Ganagay. They have so many absolute superstars, yet they can never make a run. And Morocco, who had no superstars, none, no A-level stars themselves, reached the quarterfinals. Why? Because Morocco leaned towards its strengths.
If I can, just to round off this discussion, because who would have thought our discussion of football would have been the longest part of this episode?
You brought literally
46 minutes.
You brought a sports lover to come and talk about sports.
It's
What's your
because
problem?
I told you, the questions will trip you up, yes, but the discussions will be to your favor. That's what I was trying to do.
Okay.
And I think this whole developing a unique identity in sports. I think, because in my mind, what I'm thinking about is basketball. Because before you started admitting Black African American basketball players into the
boring,
league, it was boring
structured.
as fuck, right? Very structured, very boring, very technical. And then you have these guys coming in with phlegm, coming in with it's fun.
And it was fought first.
Yeah, right? And then basketball has changed because of these players. And I think it's because you understand the culture in which you grew up in.
Yeah.
The environment in which you play has caused you to play the certain way, and you were allowed to develop your own unique style of play
around it.
And I just find it very interesting that when you go out to the middle of because in Mombasa you have a lot of people playing football, so I'm constantly watching football and basketball wherever I am, and you have this very unique, fun, almost carefree style of football that doesn't necessarily care about the specificities of the rules.
Yeah.
But it's more how do you make them work to your advantage?
Exactly.
And it's really fun to watch. But then when you put them in an environment where they have to follow league rules, it's not the same. The game is a bit boring. It's very stilted. And I just why can't we just
do the same? Why can't we find a way to use the talents of our players?
Yes.
To make us great? So
Yes.
question we have to answer.
Okay.